Ambassador Kang Tae-ho stood at the entrance of the grand chamber and took a deep breath. The massive doors before him were made of crystal that had been grown over 10,000 years. They were beautiful. They were meant to make visitors feel small. He did not feel small. Behind him, his aide, Lieutenant Park Subin, checked her tablet one last time. She looked at him with worried eyes. "Sir, the readings show elevated stress hormones from at least 12 delegations. They are not happy we are here." Tae-ho smiled. It was a calm smile, the kind he had learned from his grandmother back in Busan. She always said that a peaceful face was the strongest weapon. "Let them be unhappy," he said. "We are not here to make friends. We are here to be heard." The crystal doors opened without a sound. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room Tae-ho had ever seen. It stretched upward for nearly a kilometer, with floating platforms holding representatives from over 400 species. Light came from everywhere and nowhere. The air smelled like flowers and electricity. At the center of the chamber was a single platform. It was where new species came to request membership. It was where humanity would make its case. Tae-ho walked forward. His footsteps echoed in the silence. 400 species watched him. Some had eyes. Some had sensors. Some perceived reality in ways humans could not understand. All of them were judging him. He reached the platform and stood tall. He was not a big man, but he had presence. 30 years of diplomatic service had taught him how to fill a room with his spirit. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," he began. His voice was carried by translation systems to every ear and mind in the chamber. "I am Kang Tae-ho, Ambassador of Earth, and representative of humanity. I come before you today with a simple request. We ask for full membership in this council." For a moment, there was silence. Then the laughter began. It started from the upper platforms, where the eldest races sat. The Velthari were first. They were tall beings with silver skin and 4 arms. They had been traveling between stars when humans were still living in caves. Their laughter sounded like breaking glass. The Mordith joined in next. They were massive creatures, each one the size of a small building. Their laughter shook the floor. Then the Solani, the Kresh, the Hollow Ones, and dozens more. The entire chamber filled with the sound of mockery. Subin stepped closer to Tae-ho. Her face was red with anger. "Sir, this is unacceptable. We should leave." Tae-ho did not move. He did not flinch. He simply waited. The high speaker of the Velthari floated down from his platform. His name was Velthanor, and he was over 6,000 years old. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched stars die. To him, humanity was nothing but a brief spark in the darkness. "Little human," Velthanor said. His voice dripped with amusement. "Do you know how long your species has been traveling among the stars? 300 years. 300 years! He spread his 4 arms wide. "I have garments older than your entire space age." More laughter filled the chamber. "The Velthari built our first starship 40,000 years ago," Velthanor continued. "The Mordith have been council members for 60,000 years. The Solani remember a time before this galaxy had its current shape. And you come here, a species that discovered fire only yesterday, and you ask to sit among us as equals?" Tae-ho remained still. His face showed nothing. Velthanor leaned closer. "Go home, little human. Play with your toys. Perhaps in another 100,000 years, if your species survives, you may try again." Subin's hands were shaking. She wanted to scream at them. She wanted to tell them about everything humanity had achieved, the diseases they had cured, the worlds they had saved, the technology they had developed in just 3 centuries that had taken other races millennia to discover. But Tae-ho raised a hand slightly, and she stayed silent. "Honored High Speaker," Tae-ho said. His voice was steady and calm. "I understand your position. However, I would like the opportunity to present what humanity offers to this council." Velthanor waved a hand dismissively. "Very well. Amuse us." Tae-ho touched a control on his wrist. Holographic displays appeared around him, showing images and data. Humanity has developed unique solutions to problems that have troubled the galaxy for centuries. Our adaptation technology allows any species to survive in any environment. Our medical techniques have cured 7 diseases that were considered permanent. Our crisis response methods have saved 3 civilizations from extinction in the past 50 years alone. He paused and looked around the chamber. We do not ask to be your equals because of our age. We ask because of what we can contribute. We ask because we have earned the right through our actions. The chamber was quiet for a moment. Then Velvanor laughed again. It was a cruel sound. Adaptation technology? We have had environmental suits for 30,000 years. Medical techniques? The Solani can regenerate entire bodies. Crisis response? He shook his head. We have seen 1,000 crises. Little human. We do not need your help. He turned to the chamber. I move that humanity's request for membership be denied. All in favor? The vote was almost instant. Over 350 species voted against humanity. Less than 20 voted in favor. The rest did not vote at all. The motion passes, Velvanor announced. Humanity's request is denied. You may leave now. Teho bowed slightly. It was a formal bow, the kind given to strangers. Thank you for your time, honored council. He turned and walked toward the exit. Subin followed him, her eyes burning with unshed tears. As they reached the crystal doors, Velvanor called out one more time. Perhaps next time, little humans, you will know your place. Teho did not respond. He did not look back. He simply walked through the doors and let them close behind him. In the corridor outside, Subin finally spoke. Sir, how can you be so calm? They treated us like nothing. They laughed at everything we have done. Teho stopped walking. He looked at her with kind eyes. Subin, do you know why I did not argue with them? She shook her head. Because arguing would mean we accept their judgment, he said. We do not need their approval to know our worth. We know what we are. We know what we can do. He started walking again. And soon, they will know too. Intimate. Subin hurried to keep up with him. What do you mean, sir? Teho smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had made a decision. I mean that we gave them a chance to accept us. They refused. Now we will show them what it means to be refused by humanity. He did not explain further. He did not need to. The message would be sent to Earth within the hour. And then, everything would change. Behind them, in the Grand Chamber, the Council continued their business. They had already forgotten about the little humans who had come asking for acceptance. They would not forget for long. The ship back to Earth was called the Harmony. It was a good name for a diplomatic vessel, though Subin thought it felt wrong now. There had been no harmony in that chamber. Only cruelty. She sat in the observation deck, watching the stars slide past. The ship was moving faster than light, but from inside, it looked peaceful, calm. Nothing like the storm in her heart. Ambassador Teho found her there an hour after they left the council station. He carried 2 cups of tea. He handed one to her and sat down in the next chair. You are thinking too loudly, he said. I can hear it from my quarters. Subin almost smiled. I am sorry, sir. I just cannot stop thinking about what happened. They did not even listen to us. They did not care about anything we offered. Teho sipped his tea. What did we offer them, Subin? She looked at him with confusion. Everything. Our technology. Our medical knowledge. Our crisis response systems. Things that took us centuries to develop. Yes, Teho said. And they rejected all of it. Do you know why? Subin shook her head. Because they did not need it, he said simply. Or rather, they believed they did not need it. When you are old and powerful, you start to think you have all the answers. You forget that the universe can still surprise you. He looked out at the stars. The Velthari have been a great civilization for 40,000 years. That is a long time. Long enough to become blind. Long enough to forget what it means to struggle. Long enough to think that younger species have nothing to teach them. Subin thought about this. So they rejected us because of pride? Partly, Teho said. But also because of fear. We are young, Subin. We are new. And in 300 years, we have done things that took them millennia. That frightens them, even if they do not admit it. Subin nodded slowly. It made sense. If she had been part of an ancient civilization and suddenly saw a new species rising so fast, she might feel threatened too. What happens now? She asked. Do we try again in 100 years like they said? Teho set down his cup. His face became serious. No, we do not try again. Subin stared at him. Sir, I have already sent my report to Earth, he said. I have recommended that humanity withdraw from all galactic affairs, completely and permanently. Subin could not believe what she was hearing. Withdraw? But sir, we have worked so hard to make connections. We have trade agreements with dozens of species. Scientific exchanges, cultural programs. You want to end all of that? Teho stood up and walked to the window. The stars reflected in his eyes. Tell me, Subin, in all our dealings with the council species, how have they treated us? Subin wanted to argue, but she could not. The truth was painful. They have treated us like servants, like lesser beings. Even the ones who trade with us look down on us. Exactly, Teho said. We have been begging for scraps from their table for 50 years. We accept their insults because we want their knowledge. We tolerate their mockery because we want their technology. But here is the truth, Subin. We do not need them anymore. He turned to face her. Our scientists have matched or exceeded most council species in almost every field. Our ships are as fast as theirs. Our weapons are as strong. Our medicine is better. The only thing we lack is their respect, and that is something they will never give us. Subin stood up too. Her mind was racing. But if we withdraw, we will be alone. The galaxy is dangerous. There are threats out there that we have not even discovered yet. Teho smiled. And we will face those threats on our own terms. As humans. Not as pets of the council. Not as children begging for approval. But as a free species that answers to no one. Subin felt something shift inside her. She had always believed that humanity needed the council. That without their protection and guidance, Earth would be vulnerable. But now she wondered if that belief was wrong. What about the good species? She asked. The ones who voted for us. The ones who treat us fairly. Teho nodded. There are a few. The Tanari. The small races from the outer rim. The ones who also know what it feels like to be dismissed. He paused. We will not abandon them. If they want to continue relationships with us, they can. But we will not be part of the council system. We will not attend their meetings, or follow their rules, or accept their judgment. Subin thought about the vote. Less than 20 species had supported humanity, out of 400. It was a tiny number, but it was not zero. You really think this is the right choice? She asked. Teho looked at her with calm eyes. I think this is the only choice that allows us to keep our dignity. We offered them partnership. They gave us mockery. Now we will show them what partnership with humanity is worth. The ship continued toward Earth. It would arrive in 3 days. By then, the Council would have received humanity's official announcement. They would probably laugh again. They would probably make jokes about the young species running home with hurt feelings. But they would not laugh forever. Subin returned to her quarters and started writing her own report. She documented everything that had happened in the Grand Chamber. Every word. Every laugh. Every dismissive gesture. She wanted there to be a record. She wanted future generations to know exactly why humanity had made this choice. As she wrote, she thought about her grandmother. The old woman had survived the Korean War. She had rebuilt her life from nothing. She had taught Subin that strength was not about fighting. It was about knowing when to walk away. About choosing your own path even when everyone told you it was wrong. Maybe that was what humanity was doing now. Walking away, choosing their own path. It felt strange. It felt frightening. But it also felt right. 3 days later, the Harmony entered Earth's solar system. The blue planet hung in space like a jewel. It was home. It was everything. Tejo stood on the bridge as they approached. He had been in contact with Earth's leaders throughout the journey. They had agreed with his recommendation. The announcement was ready. "Sir," the captain said, "we have arrived." Tejo nodded. "Thank you, Captain. Please open a channel to the Council relay station." The channel opened. A Velthari communications officer appeared on screen. He looked bored. "What is your business, human vessel?" Tejo straightened his uniform. "I am Ambassador Kang Tejo of Earth. I have an official announcement for the Galactic Council." The officer's boredom turned to mild curiosity. "Proceed." Tejo took a breath. Then he spoke the words that would change everything. "The United Earth Government hereby announces its complete and permanent withdrawal from all galactic affairs. We will not seek Council membership again. We will not participate in Council programs. We will not attend Council functions. All existing treaties and agreements with Council species are hereby terminated." The officer stared at him. "You cannot be serious." "We are completely serious," Tejo said. "Furthermore, we are closing our borders to all Council traffic. No Council vessels will be permitted to enter human space. No Council citizens will be permitted to visit human worlds. This decision is final and non-negotiable." He paused. "You asked us to know our place. We now do. Our place is not among you. Our place is with ourselves. Goodbye." He ended the transmission. The bridge was silent for a long moment. Then Subin spoke. "Sir, what happens now?" Tejo looked at Earth. "His home. His people's home. Now," he said, "we become who we were always meant to be. Without them, he did not know what the future would bring. But he knew one thing for certain: humanity would never beg again." The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was buzzing with noise. It had been 6 hours since the human transmission. 6 hours since the young species had said goodbye and closed their borders. Most of the council found it amusing. Velvanor stood on his platform and listened to the chatter around him. The Mordith were making jokes about human pride. The Solani were calculating how long it would take for Earth to come crawling back. The Kresh were betting on whether humans would survive a decade without council protection. "They are children having a tantrum," one of the Hollow Ones said. Their voice echoed from somewhere in their dark form. "They will return when they realize how small they truly are." Velvanor nodded. He agreed completely. Humans were young and foolish. They did not understand how the galaxy worked. In a few years, maybe less, they would send another ambassador. They would apologize. They would beg for another chance. And the council would make them wait, make them prove their worth, make them understand that the galaxy did not need them. But there was one small worry in the back of Velvanor's mind, something he did not want to admit. The humans had not been angry. When he had mocked them, the ambassador had not shouted. He had not threatened. He had not even looked upset. He had simply bowed and walked away with perfect calm. That kind of calm was dangerous. It meant the human had already made his decision before entering the chamber. It meant the request for membership had been a test, not a hope. Velvanor pushed the thought away. It did not matter. Humans were nothing. They had nothing. The Council had survived for 100,000 years. It would survive without Earth. Across the galaxy, on a small moon orbiting a gas giant, a Tanari scientist named Mira watched the news with growing worry. The Tanari were a small species with gray skin and large eyes. They had been council members for only 5,000 years, which made them almost as young as humanity in council terms. Mira had worked with humans for 20 years. She had visited Earth 3 times. She had friends among them. Real friends. Not the fake friendships that most council species offered. She knew what the council did not know. Humans were not weak. They were not foolish. They were patient. They watched. They learned. And when they decided to act, they acted completely. "This is bad," she said to her assistant. a young Tanari named Kel. This is very bad. Kel looked confused. Why? The humans are gone. Is that not good? They were always causing trouble with their questions and their new ideas. Mira shook her head. You do not understand. The council thinks humans need us. But the truth is, we needed them more than they needed us. What do you mean? Mira pulled up data on her screen. Look at this. In the past 50 years, humans have contributed more new technology to the council than any other species. Their adaptation technology has saved 12 colonies from environmental collapse. Their medical techniques have cured diseases that we had given up on. Their crisis response teams have prevented 3 wars. Kel stared at the data. I did not know this. No one knows this, Mira said bitterly. Because the council does not want to admit it. They take human contributions and pretend they developed them themselves. They use human knowledge and give no credit. And now, humans have stopped giving. She closed the data. In 5 years, maybe 10, the council will start to feel the absence. Problems will arise that no one knows how to solve. Crises will happen that no one can manage. And they will wish they had treated humanity differently. Kel was quiet for a moment. What should we do? Mira thought about this. We should maintain our relationship with Earth. Secretly, if necessary. The Tanari are not proud. We know our place in the galaxy, and our place is with those who treat us fairly. On Earth, the mood was strange. People were not celebrating. They were not mourning. They were simply adjusting. Ambassador Teho returned to Seoul and reported to the United Earth Council. It was a group of leaders from every nation on the planet. They had voted unanimously to support the withdrawal. President Yoon Ji-young listened to Teho's full report. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been president for 8 years and had guided humanity through some of its most difficult moments. You did well, she told Teho when he finished. Teho bowed his head. I wish it had ended differently, Madam President. So do I, Ji-young said. But we cannot control how others see us. We can only control how we respond. She stood up and walked to the window of her office. From here, she could see the city stretching to the horizon, millions of people living their lives. The council thinks we will fail without them, she said. They think we need their protection and their wisdom, but they forget something important. What is that, Madam President? Ji-young smiled. They forget that humans have never needed anyone's permission to survive. We have faced ice ages and plagues and wars and disasters. We have nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times, and every time, we came back stronger. She turned to face him. The galaxy is large and dangerous. There will be threats we do not expect, challenges we cannot imagine. But we will face them, as we have always faced everything. Together, as humans. Teho felt something warm in his chest. Pride. Not the empty pride of arrogance, but the real pride that came from belonging to something greater than himself. What are my orders, Madam President? Ji-young returned to her desk. For now, rest. You have earned it. But soon, I will need you again. We are going to rebuild our relationships with the small species, the ones who supported us, the ones who understand what it means to be looked down upon. She pulled up a list on her screen. The Tanari, the Rilkani, the Outer Rim Coalition. These are species that the Council ignores. They are weak and poor and desperate, but they are also kind and honest and worthy of friendship. Teho understood. We will build our own network, our own alliance, not an alliance against the Council, Ji-young corrected. We are not seeking revenge. We are simply building a community of equals. Species that treat each other with respect. Species that share freely and help willingly. The Council can keep their pride. We will keep our humanity. Across the galaxy. On the Council station, Velvanor received a message from the Tanari ambassador. It was brief and formal. The Tanari announced that they were reducing their participation in Council affairs. They would maintain their membership but would no longer attend regular sessions. Velthanor deleted the message without concern. The Tanari were nothing. A small species from a small world. Their absence would not be noticed. He did not realize that 5 other small species sent similar messages that same day. He did not realize that a quiet exodus had begun. The council was so busy laughing at humanity that they did not see the cracks forming in their own foundation. And far away, on a blue planet orbiting a yellow sun, humans began building something new. Not an empire, not a conquest, just a simple network of friends who helped each other without asking for anything in return. It was small at first, almost invisible. But like all human things, it would grow. And one day, the galaxy would understand what it had lost. But by then, it would be too late. 3 years passed. The galaxy continued as it always had. Stars burned, ships traveled. The council met and debated and made their decisions. Most species had already forgotten about the humans who had walked away. But not everyone had forgotten. High Speaker Velthanor stood before the council once again. This time, he was not laughing. His silver face was tight with worry. His 4 arms hung at his sides like dead things. "Fellow council members," he said, "we face a crisis." The chamber fell silent. Crises were rare. The council had solved most of the galaxy's problems long ago. What could possibly threaten them now? Velthanor activated a holographic display. It showed a disease, something invisible and deadly. This is what our scientists are calling the Gray Death. It appeared on 3 worlds simultaneously, 8 months ago. It has now spread to 47 worlds across 12 species. Murmurs filled the chamber. Our medical teams have been working constantly, Velthanor continued. But they cannot find a cure. The disease attacks differently in each species. It adapts. It evolves. For every treatment we develop, it changes into something new. The Mortith representative spoke. His voice was like thunder. "How many dead?" Velthanor closed his eyes. 4 billion. So far, the chamber erupted in noise. 4 billion dead. It was unthinkable. The council had not seen such death in 10,000 years. "We need help," the Solani representative said. Her ancient voice cut through the noise. "Our own knowledge is not enough. We must reach out to others." Velthanor nodded slowly. He did not want to say what came next, but he had no choice. There is one species that specialized in adaptive medical technology. One species that developed techniques specifically designed to fight evolving diseases. The chamber was quiet. "The humans," someone whispered. Velthanor felt shame burn in his chest. 3 years ago, he had laughed at the humans. He had called them children. He had told them their medical techniques were worthless. Now billions were dying because those techniques were the only thing that might save them. "I will contact Earth," he said. "I will request their assistance." The message was sent within the hour. It was formal and polite. It explained the crisis. It asked for help. It even included a small apology for past misunderstandings. No response came. They waited 1 day. Then 2. Then a week. The message system showed that the transmission had been received, but Earth remained silent. Velthanor sent another message. This one was more urgent. He described the death toll. He begged for assistance. He promised that the council would reconsider humanity's membership. Still nothing. The Gray Death continued to spread. By the 2nd month, it had reached 60 worlds. The death count passed 10 billion. Meanwhile, a second crisis emerged. The Velthari sun was dying. It had been stable for billions of years. But now something was wrong. The star was cooling. Within 50 years, it would no longer provide enough heat for the Velthari homeworld. Within 100 years, it would go dark completely. The Velthari were a proud race. But even pride had limits. Their scientists had no solution. The technology needed to stabilize a dying star was beyond anything the council possessed, but not beyond everyone. Velthanor remembered something from the human presentation 3 years ago. Something about adaptation technology. Something about environmental solutions that could work in any situation. He sent a third message to Earth. This one was personal. He wrote it himself. Without formal language or diplomatic phrases, he simply asked for help. He admitted that the council had been wrong. He said that he had been wrong. The silence continued. On Earth, the messages were received. They were read. They were discussed. Ambassador Tae-ho sat in President Yoon Ji-young's office, looking at the latest transmission. His face showed no emotion. "They are dying," Ji-young said. "Billions of them." "Yes," Tae-ho agreed. "We could help. Our medical team solved adaptive diseases 40 years ago. Our stellar technology could stabilize their sun." Quote, "Yes." Ji-young studied him. "You do not want to help." Tae-ho was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. "It is not about what I want. It is about what is right for humanity." He stood up and walked to the window. 3 years ago, we offered them everything. Our knowledge. Our technology. Our friendship. They laughed at us. They called us children. They told us we had nothing of value. He turned back to face the president. Now they come begging. And what will happen if we help them? They will take our assistance. They will solve their problems, and then they will go back to treating us like insects. Nothing will change. Ji-young nodded slowly. "You may be right. But can we really let billions die? Can we watch their sun go dark and do nothing?" It was the question that haunted Tae-ho, the question that kept him awake at night. He was not a cruel man. He did not want revenge, but he also knew that helping without conditions would only lead to more disrespect. "We are not monsters," he said finally. "We will not let them die out of spite, but we will not help them on their terms. If they want our assistance, they must come to us. They must ask properly. They must treat us as equals, not as servants responding to orders." Ji-young understood. "You want them to send an ambassador to our world, to stand before us as we stood before them?" Yes, it was a simple request, a reasonable one. Come to Earth, ask in person, show respect. The response was sent to the council. It was brief and clear. Humanity was willing to discuss assistance. But the council must send a representative to Earth. The representative must request help formally and politely. In other words, the council must do exactly what they had refused to let humanity do 3 years ago. The council debated for 2 weeks. 2 weeks while the death toll continued to rise. 2 weeks while the Velthari sun grew colder. Pride fought against necessity. Arrogance fought against survival. In the end, survival won. Velthanor himself volunteered to go. Some saw it as brave. Others saw it as desperate. He did not care what they thought. Billions of his own people were dying from the disease. His homeworld was freezing. He would do whatever it took to save them. His ship entered human space for the first time in 3 years. Human patrol vessels escorted him to Earth. They were polite, but distant. As his ship descended toward the blue planet, Velthanor looked out the window at the world he had once mocked. It was beautiful, alive, full of the young species that had dared to walk away from the greatest power in the galaxy. He had called them children. Now he was coming to them as a beggar. The landing platform was in Seoul, near the same building where Tae-ho had reported 3 years ago. Human officials waited in formal lines. They were polite. They were proper. They were everything that the council had not been. Velthanor stepped off his ship and walked toward them. His legs felt weak. His hearts were heavy. A human woman stepped forward. President Yoon Ji-young. She did not bow. She did not smile. She simply looked at him with calm, steady eyes. "High Speaker Velthanor," she said. "Welcome to Earth." Velthanor opened his mouth to speak. But the words stuck in his throat. What could he say? How could he ask for help from the species he had humiliated? In the end, he said the only thing he could. "Please," he whispered. "Help us." Ji-young studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "Come inside," she said. "We have much to discuss." And for the first time in 3 years, a conversation began. The meeting room was simple. Plain walls, a wooden table, chairs that were comfortable but not fancy. It looked nothing like the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. Velthanor sat on one side of the table. President Ji Young sat on the other, with Ambassador Taeho beside her. There were no floating platforms, no crystals grown over 10,000 years. Just three people in a room, talking. "You have questions," Ji Young said. It was not a question. Velthanor nodded. His silver face showed exhaustion and confusion. "I do not understand. We have been trying to solve the Grey Death for months. Our best scientists, our most advanced technology. Nothing works. Yet you say you can cure it?" Taeho pulled out a small tablet and slid it across the table. "We cured a similar disease 43 years ago. Our approach is different from council methods. We do not try to kill the disease. We teach the body to adapt to it, to make it harmless." Velthanor looked at the data on the tablet. His eyes widened. "This is remarkable. Why did you not share this before?" "We tried," Ji Young said quietly. 3 years ago, in your chamber. We showed your council exactly what we could offer. You laughed." The words hit Velthanor like a physical blow. He remembered that day. He remembered his own mockery. He had called human medicine worthless. 4 billion people had died because of that mockery. "What about our son?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Can you help with that?" Taeho touched the tablet. New data appeared. "Our stellar adaptation technology has been tested on 3 dying stars in our own space. All 3 are now stable. The process takes about 5 years, but it is reliable." Velthanor stared at the data. The solution was elegant, simple, even. Something that human scientists had developed in a few decades that the Velthari had failed to discover in 40,000 years. "Why?" he finally asked. "Why did you achieve so much in so little time?" Ji Young leaned back in her chair. "Because we had to. Humans lived on a single planet for millions of years. We had no choice but to adapt or die. When our environment changed, we changed with it. When diseases appeared, we found ways to survive. When disasters struck, we rebuilt." She looked at him with something that might have been pity. "Your species has been comfortable for 40,000 years. You had stable worlds, unlimited resources, no pressure to innovate. You forgot how to struggle. And struggle is how we learn." Velthanor felt the truth of her words. The Velthari had become lazy. They had rested on their ancient achievements and stopped growing. Humans, young and desperate, had raced ahead while the elder races stood still. "We will help you," Ji Young said. "We will share our cures and our technology. But we have conditions." Velthanor straightened. "Name them. First, you will acknowledge publicly that humans are equals. Not children. Not lesser beings. Equals." He nodded. It seemed small compared to what they were offering. "Second, you will dissolve the current council voting system. Every species will have 1 vote, regardless of age. A species that joined yesterday will have the same voice as one that joined 100,000 years ago." This was harder. The elder races had always held more power. They would resist this change. "Third," Ji Young continued, "you will apologize. Not just to us. To every species you have ever dismissed. The Tanari. The Rilkani. All the small races that you treated as less than yourselves." Velthanor was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. "These conditions are harsh." "No," Taeho said. "They are fair. They are what you should have done from the beginning. We are simply asking you to become what you always claimed to be. A council of equals working together for the good of all." Velthanor looked at the human ambassador, the same man he had mocked 3 years ago, the same man who had bowed politely and walked away without a word of anger. "You planned this," he realized, "from the beginning. You knew we would need you eventually." Taeho shook his head. "We hoped you would not. We hoped you would accept us as partners, and we could work together. But when you rejected us, yes, we prepared. We strengthened our own networks. We supported the small species that the council ignored. We built something new while you were laughing at us. He paused. Do you know what the Tanari call us now? They call us the kind ones. Because when they asked for help, we gave it without demanding anything in return. When they needed medicine, we sent doctors. When they needed food, we sent ships. We asked for nothing but friendship. Velthanor felt something crack inside him. Something that had been holding him together for 6,000 years. He had always believed that power came from age, from strength, from dominance, but humans had shown him a different kind of power. The power of kindness. The power of helping others without expecting payment. The power of treating everyone as worthy of respect. I accept your conditions, he said finally. All of them. Ji Young studied him. You cannot speak for the entire council. No, Velthanor agreed. But I can speak for the Velthari. And when the other species see us accept, when they see our sun stabilize and our people heal, they will accept too. Pride is strong, but survival is stronger. The meeting continued for 3 more hours. They discussed details, plans, schedules. By the end, a framework was in place. Human medical teams would deploy within the week. Stellar engineers would begin work on the Velthari sun within the month. As Velthanor prepared to leave, he stopped at the door and turned back. I want to apologize, he said. Not because it is required. Because I mean it. I was wrong about your species. I was blinded by pride and fear and age. You deserved better. Teho stood and walked over to him. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. 2 beings from different worlds, different times, different ways of thinking. Then Teho bowed. It was a deep bow, the kind given to respected elders. Apology accepted. Now let us build something better together. Velthanor bowed back. His bow was awkward. Velthari did not normally bow. But he tried. 3 months later, the Grey Death was cured. Human adaptation techniques worked perfectly. The disease became harmless, just another part of the body's normal functions. 12 billion lives were saved. 2 years after that, the Velthari sun was stabilized. Human stellar engineers worked alongside Velthari scientists. Together, they achieved something neither could have done alone. The Galactic Council reformed. The voting system changed. Small species finally had voices equal to the ancient ones. The council became what it had always claimed to be, a true gathering of equals, and humanity took its place among the stars, not as children begging for acceptance, not as servants grateful for scraps, but as partners, as teachers, as friends. Ambassador Teho retired 5 years later. He returned to Busan and lived in a small house near the ocean. Sometimes, late at night, he would sit on his porch and look up at the stars. His aide, now Ambassador Park Subin, visited him often. One evening, as they watched the stars together, she asked him a question. Do you ever regret it? Walking away that day? Teho thought for a long moment. Then he smiled. No, he said. Sometimes you have to walk away to show people what they are losing. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. We taught them something that day. We taught them that respect cannot be demanded. It must be earned. He pointed up at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships traveled alongside vessels from 100 species. Human doctors healed alien diseases. Human engineers stabilized dying suns. Human teachers shared knowledge freely with anyone who asked. Look at what we built, Teho said. Not an empire. Not a conquest. Just a community of beings who treat each other kindly. That is our legacy. That is what humans gave to the galaxy. Subin nodded. She understood. The galaxy was vast and ancient. Many species had risen and fallen over billions of years. But none had done what humans did. None had walked away from power to prove a point about dignity. None had returned not for revenge, but to help those who had wronged them. That was the human way. Strange, unexpected, beautiful, and the galaxy was better for it.